Support for this podcast comes from listeners and St. Alphonsus Health System, a regional network of hospitals, clinics, and care providers. St. Alphonsus offers comprehensive healthcare services to individuals and families throughout the community. More information about services and locations is available at stalphonsus.org.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector. It's Idaho's daily news. Hi, I'm George Prentice. Today we have a story on, well, our shorter days and the risk of more wildlife collisions. And we'll tell you how an Idaho man, he is what is known as an extreme runner, has been pardoned by President Trump. We'll tell you what his crime was and all about the pardon. It is Wednesday, the 12th of November. Here we go with today's stories. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare reports SNAP recipients in Idaho should receive a portion of their benefits as soon as today. Our Julie Lucata has the latest.
Funding for the program was halted at the end of October amid a chaotic federal government shutdown. On Friday, about 15,000 Idahoans received a portion of their food benefits. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare reports the remaining households, about 115,000 additional people, should receive their partial benefits by today. Normally, food stamps are distributed over the first 10 days of the month on a staggered schedule. Full SNAP benefits in Idaho average about $178 per person per month. Recipients will receive 65% of their usual balance for the time being. The Trump administration has been fighting a federal judge's order to pay benefits in full. More than 2 out of 5 food stamp recipients in Idaho are children. That's about 56,000 kids. Julie Lucata, Boise State Public Radio News.
A spokesperson for the Idaho Food Bank told us they purchased $200,000 of additional food for the month in anticipation of higher demand. That's double their usual monthly budget. Meanwhile, the government shutdown has increased its impact on the nation's air transportation system. Yesterday, the FAA canceled 6% of all flights at the nation's 40th busiest airports. That was up from the earlier 4% cutback. According to FlightAware.com, the Boise airport yesterday had cancellations from Horizon and Delta Airlines, and adding to that were delays from Southwest and United Airlines. FlightAware reported canceled flights at the Boise airport yesterday that were supposed to go to Salt Lake City, Seattle, Phoenix, and Portland. Each of those cities is on the FAA's list of 40 airports, which will continue to have cancellations today. Sunrise in southern Idaho is set for 7:35 this morning, and our shorter days mean more, driving in the dark. And across the mountain west, it leads to more wildlife collisions. But as Caleb Radel reports, experts say there are solutions in some areas making the roads a bit safer.
November is peak season for wildlife collisions, partly because more drivers are on the road at dusk.
And that coincides with the exact time that wildlife are most active, especially in the fall, when that also coincides with mating season and wildlife migrations.
That's Patrick Lane with the Pew Charitable Trust. He says data shows Montana drivers have the second highest odds in the nation of hitting an animal, especially deer and elk. Wyoming, Colorado, and Idaho aren't far behind. But one approach is helping: wildlife crossings. Lane says these efforts, plus more careful driving, give both humans and wildlife a better chance of making it home safely. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Caleb Radel.
And just so you know, for your commute home, sunset later today, 5:22. The dust has barely settled on last week's election, but a candidate-to-be says she will be running next year. Terry Pickens is a former candidate for Idaho Lieutenant Governor in 2022. She's a Democrat and says she now wants to run for governor next year. She says her formal campaign launch will be November 20th. Well, we got word this week that an Idaho man has been pardoned by President Trump. In September of 2024, Michaelino Sunseri of Driggs, Idaho, he's an extreme runner. A year ago, he was running up to the summit of Grand Teton, one of the highest mountains in the American West, and then rushed back down all in less than 3 hours. But the National Park Service was not pleased. the 33-year-old Sunseri used a shortcut on his way down the mountain, which led him to a restricted trail, and prosecutors later said he had violated National Park Service regulations and he was convicted of a misdemeanor. But this week, Sunseri wrote on Facebook that he had been pardoned by President Trump, and the White House confirmed that the president had indeed granted that pardon. And by the way, the pardon came on the same day that the president issued dozens of other pardons for people accused of trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. What do you say we get back together on Thursday? You can always stay in touch with the news on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org. But why not tell your friends and family about The Connector and how they can find it wherever they find their favorite podcasts? For now, from me to you, thanks for listening.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.